Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman. I am your host for this podcast. And I started this podcast back in 2015 because I was freaking frustrated, man. The lack of good education, the lack of good transparency in this industry. And in particular, when I got started with my blog, Crowdox in 2012, I wanted to just put out good education. I wanted to share with people what was working, how to copy it, how to replicate it, and to basically execute upon that so you can bring cool new products into the world. Things like today's interview, the Tipsi tray, the single-handled, easy-to-carry tray that this person basically just came up with because they had someone who impacted their life in the past, and they wanted to be able to help other people out there. I think one of the cool things about crowdfunding is not only can you raise money, can you get attention, can you start a business, it's really a strong foundation for a business. You can also impact the world. You can make a dent in the universe. And I like to separate Kickstarter creators, managers, entrepreneurs from different other entrepreneurs out there, because you think of like tech entrepreneurs, you think of other people that have ideas, and rarely do they execute on it. But when you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, you have to execute on it. You need prototypes. You have a timeline, and you're far more serious, I think, than so many of the other business owners out there. And also it's from, I think, usually a very genuine place where you want to see something exist in the world, and you want to kind of co-create with your backers in order to bring that to the world. So it's hella inspirational. And I love hearing stories like the ones today in terms of why the actual entrepreneur created it. And now it's being used by hundreds of people around the world, thousands of dollars being raised on Kickstarter. And you can do the exact same thing, which is such a great opportunity, I think, nowadays that this actually exists. Some people think that like Kickstarter was all about like 2012, 2013. Heck no. Like I see projects being launched every single day that are phenomenal and that are continuing to get more and more funding. And see, go back to the archives of the show. We have entrepreneurs who have launched 10 Kickstarter campaigns. So it's really a repeatable model once you nail this thing down. When it comes to that, I have two resources that can help you out with that. Number one, I have my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, available on Amazon as a paperback ebook. I also have an Audible version if you like listening to me talk and you think I'm passionate and you want to enjoy the Audible version. You can go to crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That will take you to the Audible version. You can also get a free 30-day trial of Audible, and I think you'll also get a free copy of the book. That's kind of a promotion that they are running. In addition, I do one-on-one coaching calls. So if you listen to this interview and you want to get my direct input on your specific project, at the end of this podcast, I will share with you how to book a one-on-one coaching call with me, and we can get into the nitty-gritty of your specific case, your project, your product, and what you're trying to bring to the world. That being said, let's dive right into this podcast episode. This podcast episode is sponsored by the Gadget Flow. The Gadget Flow reaches over 28 million people, and they've been around since 2012. They're Indiegogo and Kickstarter experts. They featured over 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns. And if you have a technology or design campaign, it is a great platform to generate awareness and get backers. You can check them out at thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we have a Kickstarter campaign that has raised over $19,000 from nearly 500 backers for the Tipsi tray, the single-handed, easy-to-use carry tray. It's a really interesting product to have Robert here on the show with me. Robert, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Can we get started? Maybe just talking about sort of your role with the campaign and what you've been doing here with the project.
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, the business is founded by myself in January, although the work on the Tipsi tray has been ongoing for probably over a year now, to be honest. Sort of sketch pad designs and perfecting it and mocking it up and putting it to one side and probably not concentrating on it as much as I should at first. But then once I'd got a final prototype, that's when things really sort of jumped into action. I thought, actually, I've got quite a cool product here that's really functional.
When it came to your background, like have you designed products before? What were you doing before you were working on Tipsi tray?
So at the moment, I have a business called Slick Revolution. We sell electric skateboards. And so we do a lot of the design work for the decks, the battery configurations, that kind of thing. And then we've more recently started working on backpack designs. And so I've dipped my toes into the design world quite a bit before. So it's not completely new to me, but I've always been pretty handy with making things. And if there's a problem to be solved or something breaks, I would rarely go out and buy the same thing. I would work a way around it or improve it. So I've always had a design brain or a design mind, if I can put it that way.
Electric skateboards, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was a gap in the market I spotted sort of 5 or 6 years ago. And then Tipsy Tray is a standalone business, and it's going to be run on a different model to Slick Revolution. But there's obviously a few key differences between the products.
Yeah, it's like a completely different category.
Yeah, I mean, electric skateboards, although I do spend money on marketing and effort on marketing, they do sell themselves, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
They're a cool lifestyle product that it doesn't take too much to convince somebody that they need one if they're already sort of got that in their mind.
Yeah, they see Casey Neistat and they're like, I want that.
Exactly. So working with YouTubers is actually pretty easy with electric skateboards because they don't have to sort of shoehorn it into their current content, because most of them cycle to the office, skate to the office, or can fit it in a sort of an organic way. That's something we've struggled with Tipsy Tray, because although it's a cool product, it's not an electric skateboard, and it doesn't naturally fit into too many YouTubers' lifestyles without being a bit forced.
Well, I feel like for a guy like you must have lots of different ideas over the years, right? And you have this ability, it seems, to be able to execute on them, right? So why is it that you decided to put all of the work and the effort into making Tipsy Tray a reality, versus like all these other ideas I'm sure that you have?
Yeah, well, the thing with electric skateboards is they're great. However, it is such a niche market. We sell mostly to men of a certain age who have to have a certain amount of disposable income. And the more you drill into it, the more niche a category it becomes. And so I was looking for a product which would be much more mass market and considered for purchase by much more of the population. And that would, the idea being that would do much better down the road in terms of revenue. And that's hopefully what we're sort of achieving.
Had you done a Kickstarter before for your electric skateboard, or was this your first one?
Yes, I've done 3 Kickstarters. The first one was for the flexi board. That was for a wheel design and a battery case. And I think that raised about £40,000.
Nice.
And then the second Kickstarter was for the new range of boards, which was a couple of years ago. And that raised a little bit less, partly due to a lot more competition creeping onto the market. And then I actually did a Kickstarter which came off the back of Slick Revolution, which was a product called Deck Hook. And that was a cool little clip that clips onto your rucksack, and it allows you to carry a longboard or a skateboard or an e-board on most rucksacks. And that raised about $56,000 on Kickstarter. So this is my fourth, albeit first business.
Congrats, you're becoming the seasoned veteran now.
You say that, but there's still plenty of things I can learn about Kickstarter. And that's kind of what I'm treating the Tipsy Tray launch as. A way to building a brand new email list for a completely different demographic. For the previous projects, I could rely on my current customer base. I had a few years trade. I had plenty of customers that trusted us and were already behind us. So it was relatively easy to say, here's our new model. Why not upgrade your old one? So I'm sort of starting fresh with the Tipsy Tray, because the demographics that it's attracting is a lot of the gifting market and a lot of women, in fact, purchasing for elderly relatives, disabled relatives, or just friends and family. So it's sort of starting fresh, really, as with a completely new demographic.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really exciting. And That first stage also, like you're talking about how it can take a year from just the idea of the product towards getting it to market. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the prototyping stage and like how you figured out manufacturing. Because I think that bogs a lot of people down. Like they're like you in that they're inventive and like they have so many ideas, but they don't really know how to execute on that, right? So what are some of the first steps that you were taking with the Tipsy tray to get it made?
Well, I'm pretty handy myself, so I was fortunate enough that I could make basic versions by, literally bending wire, buying some trays, seeing what works. And it's a relatively straightforward product, which is relatively straightforward to prototype. And so my suggestion would be do it yourself as much as you can, whether you're substituting metal for plasticine or whatever is available. If you can figure it out yourself, you're going to save a lot of money down the line, whether that's with the design team or just in terms of prototyping directly with a manufacturer.
And what is the goal of that initial prototype, would you say?
It's to find a viable product that works and functions, and it also acts as a model for somebody else to copy. Initially, I did a few drawings and working out different ways it can work. And in all honesty, I think probably on maybe 30 or 40 prototypes for the Tipsy tray. Variations of the mechanism of how it clips together, variations of the tray. Do we want square ones? Do we want circular ones? How will it all attach? Is it going to be too heavy? So the prototyping stage really helps you iron out all those questions and come up with a viable product at the end of it.
Also, like the size of it, right? And how the user interacts with it also.
Yeah, that's really important. It's important to put it in people's hands and not just because, I have a regular human-sized hand, as do most people. However, the target audience for the Tipsy tray, well, it's sort of twofold, really. We've got the elderly and the disabled market, which will be able to use it at home. And then we've also got retail market. But we wanted to put it in the hands of people who have arthritis, who have stiff joints, who have balance issues, and they could give us some valuable feedback on the style and on the actual functionality of the product, really.
I mean, also for someone who's doing waitressing or carrying lots of stuff on the Tipsy tray like every single day, just by making it a little bit easier, it's going to have like a massive, like multifold effect, kind of. One little improvement is going to make it so if you're doing a job for 8 hours, it's going to make it that much easier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing we sort of focus on in marketing is rather than saying how good a product it is, it's very easy to say that you are going to make your life easier. And whether that's from a bar owner's perspective, who is going to save X amount in spilled drinks and cleaning costs and embarrassed waiters, or if it's the old lady who can no longer carry 2 cups of tea upstairs without being able to hold the banister. Our initial feedback from the current backers was super, super positive, and it's really, really nice to launch a product that's going to help so many people. And we had a little bit of resistance in terms of feedback initially, that a lot of people thought it was a business-to-business product, that we should be going straight to the cafes, straight to the hotels. In actual fact, obviously, you're not going to attract that kind of customer necessarily on Kickstarter, but really, if we can get it into the hands of the people that really need it in the home,
they do the selling, yeah.
I think that's possibly going to be a bigger market overall, especially at the moment, particularly in the UK. There's no bars or restaurants open, so that side of the market, people at home, has taken over, really.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere there. The other thing is like it kind of also plays into the aesthetic of the restaurant. Like if you are served a beverage in a certain type of cup that's like unique to like a unique wine cup or something, you remember the restaurant. Same thing if like you're served with a Tipsy tray, it's almost like more care is given to the serving experience, right? So you'll remember like, oh, that's the restaurant that serves with those things, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was something that was important during the design process. There are versions or similar trays available that are typically white plastic with a handle that attaches on both sides, and they do function in a similar way. However, we wanted to go down the stainless steel route, and the black circular trays, they're
so much better. Yeah,
pretty standard. They're the same trays you see all over the world. They're polyurethane and rubber. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. But we really wanted something that would not make people feel old. Once you move towards this sort of the older market, You get, that grey hearing aid colour and plastic handles and like sort of almost like a care product. We didn't want to go down that route. We wanted something that wouldn't look out of place next to your stainless steel kettle or your stainless steel toaster or in a bar setting, for example. So it's quite sleek. It's not overly branded. We've got a subtle single-handed logo on the tray. But apart from that, yeah.
It looks very modern design. When it comes to the manufacturing, one of the things that you took away that we're talking about was that you decided to go with like several manufacturers. I just was wondering if you could like expand on that point a little bit.
Yeah, so it's something I learned from my experience with Slick Revolution. If you only have one manufacturer, particularly, I mean, we're having it manufactured in China, and we did have a quote from India as well, but we've now got 3 manufacturers quoting for us in China. The reason we approach several is that it gives you a lot of leverage. If you have one manufacturer and they spend a long time developing samples, it's not something that manufacturers particularly want to do, because what they want is turn the process on, churn out products, sell X amount of units. They don't really like breaking away from their current workflow. So yeah, if you only have one manufacturer, unless you have some very strict legal agreements in place, which for the average person who's just starting a Kickstarter, it's an expensive thing and it's something that you don't really want to be doing. A lot of it's based on trust. But in reality, there's nothing to stop the Kickstarter ending. Fantastic, we've succeeded. And then the manufacturer says, oh, I'm very sorry, the price has gone up 20% and the steel price has increased. We've had to increase, our overheads have increased. There's quite a lot of factors where they can just, you're over a barrel really. So having several, you can negotiate the price from each other and it gives you more options. Plus, it's always good to do that. Anything in business, get a few quotes, see who communicates the best, see who makes the best samples, see who has even has the best English and can communicate well. All those kind of factors will decide my choice on who I go for the manufacturing, not solely who can make it the cheapest at the price point that I want, really. So
at what stage did you go out there and start to ask those questions? Was this like 6 months after the idea? Was this a month before the campaign? Like when were you really starting to hammer out the answers to those questions?
It was probably 6 months ago that we started approaching manufacturers. It's a sort of a difficult subject, really, because I've got a great design and I don't just want to tell every Chinese manufacturer I can find that I want to order 10,000 units and it's going to be the next big thing, because they're likely to run away with it. So I initially went through a UK company who outsource to China and India, and they're the ones who organize some manufacturing in India, which in the end we found that the quality was perfect and it was really good product. However, the pricing that they came back with, it just wasn't viable. We'd have to be selling the Tipsi trays at almost double the price they are now.
Jeez, yeah.
So that sort of threw a spanner in the works. And at that point, I approached a couple more Chinese manufacturers and got quotes from them. And again, they're doing a really good job with the samples, and we're almost at the final, getting some final samples from them. And I'm still approaching a third who is a contact of a contact who again, there's no harm in getting more on board, because for a relatively simple product like the Tipsi tray, it's stainless steel bar, and then the male and the female part where they connect, that requires either a mold or some milling machines, but it's relatively simple as a product. So samples, they're only a few $100s or less to produce. So it's not a huge risk to get 4 samples from 4 different manufacturers and have some as a backup in the future as well.
Yeah. When it comes to the finding the manufacturers, for someone, I mean, you've done a bunch of different products over the years, right? So for someone who's just getting started and they don't have any contacts yet, like what do you recommend they should do to try and find manufacturers?
Well, the easiest way is to jump on Alibaba, find manufacturers who produce similar products, who may want to turn the hand to your product. And that's okay. You'll never ever get the best price going directly to Alibaba, for example. But if you search on some online forums and find sourcing agents, they're usually the best port of call to help you negotiate what can be a pretty difficult process, really. It's not as easy as ordering a sample and then saying, placing an order for thousands. There's a lot that goes into the quality control process and logistics. And so, yeah, if you've got someone on the ground in China.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah, if you had that.
Yep, someone on the ground in China as either a sourcing agent or someone who can put you in touch with one. They can negotiate in the factory's native language. They know all the sort of the tips and tricks, and they've got far more negotiating power than Joe Blogs on the other end of an email.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the logistics, but before we do, I also kind of wanted to just draw the attention to your video on the page, right?
Okay.
Because I was looking at the video and it is beautiful, man. It's also really funny, like in some sections. I liked it a lot.
Thank you. My vision for the brand is I didn't want to be another sort of a boring, I'm not sure what the best way to put it is.
Ordinary cookie cutter.
Every so often you might get like a catalogue store. We get them all the time in the UK, and it's sort of elderly people products, whether it's walking sticks or spikes on your shoes to aerate your lawn. It could easily be a shopping channel style product, like a hearing aid or a stair lift, that kind of thing. And it could easily lend itself to that. This tipsy tray will change your life, and the old lady walking down the stairs. And as much as that is our market, and we probably will do some of that.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. Fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately.
I wanted it to be a bit more fun, a bit more eye-catching, have more potential to have a viral effect online, and something that people would watch. And I mean, it's over the top, isn't it? We used vehicles and methods of transport that you never would, but I think that would help capture people's attention a little bit more than a product demo.
Yeah, I love that one. When you're bouncing on the ball, or like you were riding on the bike with the Tipsy tray.
We actually did this is another top tip. Get a couple of samples if you can. We thought we're going to have a shot where we're going left to right paddleboarding, and I was dressed as a waiter, had my boots on, and I was right, jump on the paddleboard, and I paddled out a little bit and then fell off with the Tipsy tray in hand. And of course, the Tipsy tray doesn't float. As many benefits as it has, it doesn't float. And so on the day of filming, we actually lost one to the sea. So,
oh, what?
But luckily we had a second sample. So that's another tip, or tie it to your body somehow. But yeah, it was good fun filming.
Yeah, I bet. I feel like it makes it so much more organic too. Like you see all these commercial style videos and they aren't very authentic, but just watching yours, you can very easily see the functionality, and there's also the personality of the brand in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did a couple of versions, and certainly one thing I didn't want to do was the standard Kickstarter type video, the prototyping shots, the over-the-shoulder pointing at the screen, and people aren't bothered particularly about the process building up to it. They're not bothered how many prototypes you've done necessarily, or they don't really want to see that in the video. At least if you've piqued their interest with the video, then they'll read on and they can find out that information in the project itself. But we wanted to stay away from that Kickstarter style of here's us prototyping, here's us all laughing as a community. And I think it's a bit overused and sort of drag and drop for a lot of projects out there.
Yeah, it's kind of stale, I think, at this point, especially just Kickstarter's changed so much over the years, and a lot of the people get used to sort of like a normal format, like, because a lot of the times if you're backing lots of projects, like, and you see the same style video, you just kind of start to tune out, right?
Yeah, I think so. We wanted something that would be a little bit different, but also, as I said, have potentially more of that viral effect. I mean, we made another video for sort of social teasers. We clips together loads of shots of people spilling drinks, waiters spilling drinks, waitresses dropping food. We sort of put that all together and said, here's a solution. And that video performed, although it wasn't our main Kickstarter video, it performed a lot better and got a lot more interest than the actual Kickstarter one.
Interesting.
It's just something to stop you scrolling while you're on Facebook, while you're on Instagram, straight into the action, and a little bit more interesting than the norm.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. So you're making all of these like incredible promises, right? And the thing looks awesome. It's very robust, like easy to wash. I can see it be used in so many different situations. Like I'm surprised, honestly, the drink doesn't spill. And then you have like the gripping technology. How do you back up these promises? Because like sometimes with logistics, things don't always go the way you want, right? And sometimes there are like wrenches that are thrown in your plan with logistics. How do you deal with those kinds of things?
Well, logistics is a tricky one, and it's still something I'm trying to figure out now. This is sort of a little bit similar to manufacturing, that you should always have a plan B and a plan C. It's a bit of a minefield online researching what are the best fulfillment partners to use. A lot of the big Kickstarters out there that have raised sort of, $1 million plus, they will tell you who they use, and they might even have a badge of approval at the bottom. So you can sort of generally trust those people or those fulfillment partners. However, if you do any Googling and look on any forums, people generally only complain when things have gone badly. So if you spent too much time on Google, you'd think that every logistics company is terrible because one person has always had a bad experience and taken to Reddit. So we've got a few options really. Either we ship everything individually via air from our manufacturer. Now, that's become a lot more expensive since the coronavirus, but it is the easiest option, just to ship everything individually. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit more expensive, but it gets to people faster, and it allows us to then jump onto our website sales and Amazon sales faster. Or the other option is to send to distributors, which is something that Amazon does itself. But yeah, we've moved from plan A to plan B and C now. Our original plan, or our original logistics company, said we're imposing a minimum amount, which we didn't meet. So we did have plan B and C ready in the wings. So we've had to move to them. But it is a very difficult thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to get your head around, especially when you don't know the breakdown of where people will be buying from, whether you'll meet the minimum order quantity to send one pallet to the US, one pallet to the UK. It's quite a complex thing, and finding those logistics partners that you trust as well is quite difficult until you can prove that you're putting the volume through their business, that they're interested in helping you out, really.
Do you build in the shipping into the reward price, or is that something you do for the add-on kind of?
We did it as an add-on.
Okay.
The reason we did that is because it means it doesn't look as good, that we don't raise as much money on the Kickstarter. However, it means that we can offer cheaper shipping to customers, to backers, because we don't have to take off the Kickstarter fee and just the Kickstarter fee. We don't have to take that off, so we can essentially give it to customers at 10% cheaper. It's a little bit more hassle, and there's sort of two schools of thought really to doing it. But one of the biggest issues I've found, certainly with Kickstarters, is that shipping will always be expensive. People are so used to shopping on Amazon with next day, 2-day delivery, free shipping included. It's just not possible for a relatively small product like this, because we have to ship less than 1,000 units for this Kickstarter, from our manufacturer in China. So it's just not possible to offer as good a rates. So that's a little bit of a hurdle that we have to get past.
Do you do that then like in Crowdox or BackerKit or something like that afterwards?
Yeah, so we're moving over to Crowdox. They're managing all of our pledges and also offering other additional products for sale. We've got a few different versions of the tray. So yeah, that's another thing that's new. I've never used management software before.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot more people moving over to Crowdox. Was there any reason that you decided to make that change?
Just because of the volume that we expected. When I said that we raised sort of 40,000 on the e-board Kickstarter, that actually equates to maybe 50 or 60 boards, because they're £800 each kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with this, we've got a much bigger volume, and it's more opportunity to upsell as well, which is something that we didn't necessarily have an opportunity to do before because we didn't have much to upsell. Whereas if we can offer customers, for example, we're doing an extra Tipsy tray at the super early bird price, but with no additional shipping. Obviously, it costs us more shipping because they're doubling the weight of their package, but we're happy to take that hit, and we've built that into the margin of the product.
Okay, I see. Well said. So I have like two more technical questions for you. But before we do, I did also kind of want to ask, so you've done all of these different campaigns before and made different products. How do you think of yourself? Like, are you an entrepreneur? Are you a designer? Are you someone who just like kind of making things? How do you like classify yourself?
I would say entrepreneur. I don't like that term too much because everyone who sells anything seems to call themselves an entrepreneur now. But having made a product that is brand new, the thing is with an entrepreneur, you have to be a jack of all trades and you've got to wear every hat. And obviously some hats are stronger than others. And I'm a relatively good designer and I'm good at being creative and making things. However, I've got very little CAD experience, for example. I can take an idea and make a physical product, but I can't necessarily put that into a technical drawing. But that's something where I rely on other people, freelancers, to do that for me. So just like I have to do all the accounts for post Kickstarter.
Oh, don't you love that?
That's not interesting. And that's why that's not the reason anyone goes out into the entrepreneurial world or the Kickstarter world, but that's just something you have to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a jack of all trades as an entrepreneur.
So what do you enjoy most? Is it the creation side of it when you're designing? Is it the afterwards you see people who are like sending you emails like, this is awesome, man? Like, what do you enjoy most about it?
For this project, obviously launching is the most exciting part. And that's really enjoyable, seeing all of your hard work, because 80% of the work of a Kickstarter is done before you launch. Seeing it launch, seeing people jump on and seeing people excited is really good. But I think for me on this project, which has been different to obviously my electric skateboard ones, electric skateboards are fantastic. And once they get into customers' hands, they'll send you feedback and say, it's brilliant. I've been out riding today. I had a great time. But I think what did it for me on the Tipsy tray was on the first day, we sent out an email to everybody who backed and said, thanks for backing. Do you mind telling us a little bit about why you've bought it? Is it for yourself? Is it for a friend? Do they have a disability? And the feedback we got from that was really heartwarming. So many people thanking us. Thank you for making this product. My 87-year-old nan is losing her independence, and she'll be able to go upstairs holding drinks. And that was probably the highlight of this project. And hopefully it will be for all of Single Handed's products, because I'm hoping to obviously I'll be adding more Tipsy tray sizes, but I want to create a brand that helps those types of people, really. And so,
is there a reason for that? Like, do you have someone in your life that has experienced hardship with their ability to carry things, or was this just kind of like out of the goodness of your heart that you wanted to solve that?
Well, it was a product that my granny and late grandpa had for years, and I grew up around essentially a Tipsy tray. It was a completely different design. It was fully welded. It was a smaller rectangular tray, and it had a loop at the top, so you would hold it with one finger. And it's something my granny used more and more as she got older for negotiating stairs. They had a really drafty house, so they always shut every door. So if they went to the kitchen to get some tea or coffee, they'd have to open two doors. So it's something I grew up around, and it was only a few years ago that I said, where did you buy that product? I can't remember what they called it, just the tray, I guess. And it was actually made by a relative of my granny's.
Really interesting.
It was at that point I thought, it's a really good product, and the principle works the same. I mean, I've not invented the principle. Trays of a similar nature have been used in Turkey for years, which negative people in Facebook comments love to point out to you.
Yeah.
And my reply is, well, now it's here with a better design and available worldwide. Those people commenting don't have a Turkish tray in their kitchen, do they? So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, also you think of like companies like Starbucks, like obviously there's Italian coffee, but Howard Schultz brought that to the US in like a different way.
exactly,
So that's what people do. You create new ways of experiencing things.
exactly. And like we talked about before, some of the improvements on the design were the fact that the handle is now removable. So that means that you can put the whole thing in a small slot, or you can put it in a
Easy to
dishwasher.
wash. Yeah.
You can leave a tray of drinks at the table and remove the handle. Also, the stainless steel, the handle, it's got two bars, which means that you've got some leverage in your hand. So if all the drinks are on one side of the tray, you can still balance it. The previous one that my grandmother has a single bar. So you had to keep it balanced. You had to take one off the left, one off the right, and it would tip. You didn't have much movement in your hand. So yeah,
Very cool. Very cool.
really, it's an improvement on the old Turkish design, which has three metal bars going up to a center point, which you have to reach around them.
Mhm.
It can't break down for storage, that kind of thing.
So I just got two more quick questions for you here. So one is that I noticed you have a help chat for Kickstarter newbies on the page where it'll link out to Facebook. And I'm not sure if that's like a Facebook Messenger bot or what. Have you found that to be effective for your projects?
We've had very few people jump on it, actually.
Okay, so it wasn't something you really contributed as much to backers and such.
It was something I saw on another campaign's page, and I thought it sounds like a good idea. People can ask me questions directly if they're not sure, because that was another sort of a hurdle potentially for this product, is that the demographic is not necessarily the Kickstarter community. It's either a much older community, those who are not as astute on computers or with Facebook.
Yeah.
That was a small hurdle that we had to overcome, is convincing people to leave Facebook to this website they've never heard of, Kickstarter, and to leave the credit card details. That's a hurdle we've sort of had with even with some of the more tech savvy older generation who are backing the Tipsy Tray. That was a difficulty we had. So I put it in there as
That's a good idea. Yeah.
it builds trust as well, more so than just reams and reams of FAQs of how to do this, how to do that.
Yeah.
Some people need that extra chat to a real person just to push them over the line as well.
You also don't have to back the project to leave a comment, right? So you could just message before backing it versus before, you'd have to back it otherwise to leave a comment. The other question I had was, I noticed you guys are working with Gelup, and in the past, I'm sure you remember this, Gelup would only work with projects that are like over 100K that have raised money. How did you end up like working with them? And do you think that's changed with their like criteria of working with campaigns?
We actually only started working with Gelup 2 days ago.
Oh, nice.
So we had a Facebook marketing guy who we used for the pre-launch phase to collect emails, send people to a landing page, collect emails, generate some buzz around the product. And then we also used him for the campaign, and we had to get rid of him. He just wasn't performing. So one thing, in fact, I mean, I've seen Gelup on lots of campaigns, but it's a little bit like the logistics problem. You Google a crowdfunding company, and it's all pretty much always negative, because yes, some people will have had bad experiences, or companies will have jumped in on a project, but in actual fact, it's not a great project, and so it's failed, and they blame the company.
Mm-hmm.
But got some good insights on Gelup from a podcast. There's a lady talking about them, and so yeah, picked up the phone. And one thing I really like about them is, it sounds like an advert now, but they don't charge an upfront fee, and that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks I've found for Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign companies, is that so many of them want a huge amount of money upfront before you've spent anything on advertising. And as a new business with literally no money, it's only some advertising budget to one side. It's too much of a risk, really.
Yeah.
But that's something that Gelup don't do. They charge a percentage of their fees directly raised, as opposed to the total as well. So I thought, I'm kind of using this Kickstarter as a little bit of an experiment as well. In terms of PR, once your campaign's launched, you get a ton of emails from PR companies. And again, you Google them, they all seem terrible. They all seem like they rip people off. But in actual fact, like I said, that's just the 1% that might feel that way. So I'm using it as a bit of an experiment to test the waters with who is most communicative, who gets us the best backlinks, and who actually puts us on the map. And some of them are really affordable. Some are, $49, $50. And so we've played around with some of those that have guaranteed us spots. And at the end of the day, we're launching a product that's around $30. So it's not a huge amount of risk to experiment with, several smaller PR companies.
Well said. Awesome, man. Well, you have a great project here. Where can people go to check it out for the next 12 days?
Yeah, so it's on Kickstarter, obviously. You can search Tipsi Tray and it should come up.
TIPSI.
TIPSI Tray. And you can look at some more details on our website as well, which is singlehandedproducts.com.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the show here, sharing lots of great details. I want to let you have the last word here. If you want to share a final word of encouragement for a designer who's never made a product before and they're just now thinking about crowdfunding, or if you want to share a final tip or something you wish you knew, a quote, anything like that.
I would say go to the local hardware shop, buy some metal, buy some plasticine, start playing around, get some feedback from people, and go for it. Kickstarter isn't the one-stop shop, chuck a product on there and raise a load of money and change your life, as it used to be portrayed as. But if you've got a good product or a good idea, it's a really good way to get it on there without spending a huge amount of money on molds and fees and prototyping, that kind of thing. And you can actually test the waters with a cool idea. And if it hits, well, that's great. You've got a new business. And if it doesn't, then it's something you can improve on, or you've not wasted a huge amount of money, really.
Well said. Robert, thanks for coming on the show.
Perfect. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman. I am your host, and I hope you've been having a great week, man. Hope you've been making some progress towards your goals. Some weeks, you get more progress than others. Sometimes, some days, you kind of inch towards your goal, put it that way. But other weeks, you're making leaps and bounds. I think the most important thing is you're always moving. You never want to be stagnant when it comes to a project. Once you get stagnant and you stop focusing and you stop working, it's so much harder to pick up that momentum. It's kind of like if you're running around a track and you stop after the first mile and you take a break for 30 minutes or something, it's so much harder to get back on the track, right? It's so much harder to jumpstart a process again than just to simply maintain your momentum. Rather than stopping, you should be slowing down, jogging or walking, always be moving towards your goal, and it's going to make it a lot easier. So I congratulate you, number one, for tuning into this podcast, because so many other people out there are not learning. They're not learning from other people. They're not seeking out information, and you are doing that, which puts you head and shoulders above other people that are out there. You're trying to do this launch right. This is awesome, whether this is your first launch or you've done a couple now, Kickstarter, Indiegogo campaigns. I congratulate you for that. In addition, if you want to put it a little bit more, easy on yourself, so you want someone to help you and guide you as you're going out there and you're trying to assess different teammates, resources, tools, I do this intensive hour-long coaching call where basically we will go through every element of your campaign, the pre-launch, and really dial into what is going to move the meter for your specific product, the category you're launching in. What are some of the resources you should be using? What basically is not on your radar. You don't know what you don't know a lot of the times. And I've been in this industry for a long time now, and I've seen many different types of projects. So I have a lot of knowledge, if you will, I can impart, and you can get all of that in a very simple one-on-one coaching call with me. If you've been enjoying these podcast episodes, this is just a sample, basically, of all of the different things that can be available to you when you go live with a campaign. And I would love to bring my own expertise there on the call. And also, if you would like me to be involved in a larger sense with your project, we can also talk about that and the way that I structure working with clients and such like that. So if that's interesting to you, go and book a one-on-one hour-long coaching call with me at crowdcrux.com/coaching. That is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. That link will take you to a form. Fill out a little bit of information to give me some information about you and what's your goal, what type of product have you created, where are you, that kind of stuff. And then we can get our call squared away ASAP and make sure that we set you up for success. Again, my name is Sal. Hope you have some relaxing time this week. You also get to hustle a bit more on your project, and I will see you next week.